Hey everyone, Jim Sonis and Brandon Gadula here with the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast. We recorded on Thursday morning, and then on Thursday afternoon, there was a tidal wave of running back news. We want to go through our thoughts on how things had changed here. Then we'll put the rest of the podcast after this so you can get to our original stupid thoughts from before all this news occurred. Okay, so things to note from Thursday afternoon. Christian McCaffrey and Joe Mixon both downgraded to out on Thursday, did not practice there. Could still play, but didn't practice on Thursday. Ain't great, man. I called Matt Rule a liar on the show. That aged well. Damian Williams placed on the COVID-19 list. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb missed another practice on Thursday. I still think they probably play, but worth noting here. And then also Dalvin Cook practiced in full on Thursday, so he's going to play and likely healthier than he was before. So let's go thing by thing here. Just get your quick reactions. Christian McCaffrey not practicing. Brandon, how are we handling Chuba Hubbard if McCaffrey can't go on Sunday?
So Chuba is 6,900, which is very, very nice for his salary. I've been underwhelmed by Chuba Hubbard overall, despite the 24 carry, 101 yard game. Boy, I think a lot of this depends on how you view, and did we do a whole trend on McCaffrey?
Oh yeah.
Well, you were talking about how Christian McCaffrey has made a positive, tangible impact on this passing offense.
Oops.
When he's on the field. Now he's not going to be on the field, so you have to downgrade this offense to some degree. Hubbard at 6,900 is, in play for sure. I was going to say we have Joe Mixon at the same salary, but who knows?
Psych.
DeAndre Swift at 7,100 is still someone I would very much prefer. I would prefer Darrell Henderson as well at 7,300. I'm kind of okay with Josh Jacobs at 6,800. So Hubbard's not falling into must-play territory. The salary of 6,900 is high enough where I still would prefer some other guys right above him.
I think I'm higher on him than you are.
Okay.
Because part of the reason Hubbard was underwhelming was because they had Rodney Smith, but they released him Monday, which is part of the reason I thought that Matt Rule was a liar. Again, sorry, coach. You're not a liar. My bad. I think that because Smith is gone, that increases the passing game projection for Chuba Hubbard. So I would put him above Swift. Is that stupid? Maybe. I don't know. We're flying by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
I think I'd put him above Swift. I think that he is the number 2 non-stud on this slate behind Khalil Herbert. I'd put Khalil Herbert number 1 with Damian Williams now on the COVID list, because who else are they going to use? They've got no one. Tariq Cohen's on PUP. David Montgomery is on IR. Williams is gone. I'm pretty sure Khalil Herbert's probably going to play every snap at $5,500. So I'd put Herbert 1, followed by Hubbard. What are your thoughts on Khalil Herbert this week?
But wait, between the guys who have breaking news, or
I'm including Devontae Booker and Darrell Williams there. Okay. I think that Hubbard and Herbert are above both those guys.
I would say Herbert first at 5,500. That salary is too good.
Mm-hmm.
I would still, man, that salary for Chuba Hubbard is a bit high. Jim's dancing, peacocking.
High for whom? High for whom? Come on.
Boy. Okay, I will go Herbert, Hubbard, Williams, Booker.
Okay. Only difference I have is I have Booker 3rd, Williams 5. Something we or 4, I guess. Something we discussed in the podcast. Our rankings of them, our view of them overall.
Something past us we'll talk about in the future if you're listening to this first.
Yeah, just pretend those dummies weren't here. Yeah. Anyway, the reason that I said Williams 5 was not a slip of the tongue. It's because I think Chris Evans would be 4 if Joe Mixon can't play. Samaje Perine on the COVID IL. I almost said that's the injured list. That's baseball. Wow. Anyway, fried brain. The reason that Evans is not higher for me, despite the fact he will get a lot of passing game work, is I'd expect Travion Williams to get some early down work for the Bengals. He's on the practice squad right now. He's really good. I think he's good at least. Yeah, I think he's good. He won me some money in the past and back in the college days. Go Aggies. But I think that's enough concern where I put Evans below Booker, who I know will get early down work and passing game work, below Herbert, below Hubbard, but above Williams, just because the matchup is so good. And, maybe I shouldn't I should probably put him below Williams. Maybe. I don't know. It's just the Lions are so hard to pass up.
So is this all of it, or is there more with the running backs? I can't even. Huh?
Well, I mean, Dalvin Cook was practicing full, so we can talk about him if you want.
Well, now I'm asking, like, so a running theme of our pod was what to do with the $7,000 backs, because it's a pretty good range. You can throw Austin Eckler in there. You can now throw Dalvin Cook, like in that kind of non-Christian McCaffrey range. Those guys who are still healthy, they're still really good. So how much are we chasing all of this value? So we can rank these new backs with life, but how do they stack up for you relative to the overall running back slate, which I think is the real question?
I would say the best point of comparison is Darrell Henderson, and I would say Darrell Henderson's above Herbert, Hubbard, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'd still like to get to Henderson at 72. If Mixon were to play, like if he gets in a full practice Friday, I would still love him. I just don't have confidence in that happening now. And that could happen, maybe he was just getting a rest day today. If he's a full practice Friday, I'd love Joe Mixon and put him first, followed by Henderson, then Herbert, and then Hubbard, considering those things. And I think the reason why I'm motivated to talk about the value and get there is because I want Tyreek Hill. He also didn't practice today because no one did. I want Tyreek Hill. I want Patrick Mahomes. I want all these guys, and they help me get there without sacrificing volume.
Yeah. So the real reason that we pay up for running back in this house is that the combination of upside from high salaried backs plus value receivers is appealing generally, but we have multiple wide receivers who can really erupt as well. So I'm a little bit more intrigued by the value backs than I typically would be. I just wish, wasn't there a slate like 2 weeks ago where there were no running backs we liked?
Yeah.
I wish some of these guys popped then. Now we have too many. Correct. But yeah, I think it's going to really be, it's going to make it where there's not a whole lot of chalk at running back. And what I might do is figure out if everyone's going to play Chuba Hubbard or Khalil Herbert, just whoever's going to be like the mega chalk, kind of avoid them, because I have ways to go at literally every salary point.
Yeah. I have a hard time deviating from Hubbard and Herbert just because I think that their roles are really good, and I think those teams will be competent enough. But Booker, like if it's Mike Glennon, I have an easier time jumping off. So it does depend on how things go Friday still. I know we're adding on things after we already discussed it, but I would say to me, I have a lot of confidence in Herbert, a lot of confidence in Hubbard based on the workload I expect them to get. Again, if Damian sits, which he probably will, and if McCaffrey sits, then I'd be good with those guys. Maybe McCaffrey and Mixon still play, and this is still moot, but I think that Herbert and Hubbard are worth prioritizing relative to their salaries.
2, 4, 6, 7. 6 of the top 7 backs right now on FanDuel have a Q tag in terms of salary.
You could probably take that off Cook since he practiced in full.
Sure, but
so
it's
good.
Just
and Zeke's, Zeke.
If you, so we're gonna go over our loves at running back later on.
Yeah.
But if you were doing your 3 loves now, what would those be?
So they were McCaffrey, Mixon. I think I just dusted all these.
I think it was McCaffrey, Mixon, and Booker.
Woof. If I were doing 3 loves right now, I would probably do Darrell Henderson, Khalil Herbert, and Chuba Hubbard.
Okay.
I think that'd be my list of 3 right now.
I would probably stick with Eckler.
Okay. That's fair.
I'd probably stick with Swift.
Okay.
Wasn't Jamal Williams an issue today?
Not that I saw.
Okay.
Maybe. Everyone else was, so why not?
And then I'll go Herbert over Darrell Williams now. The offense is completely different, but I feel really good with the role.
Fields is basically Mahomes. I don't know. I think.
Sure. I mean.
Yeah, I think so. At least, basically there. Okay. Any final thoughts for you before we send people off to the actual show?
Boy. Just give us the benefit of the doubt because we don't know what's about to hit us.
And I will say that, like, most of it's still relevant. Like we talked about Devontae Booker, Darrell Williams. We still would consider those guys for sure, and they may still wind up being relevant. We talked a lot about the games we want to stack. They just got easier to stack now, so that's good. Terry McLaurin, sweet, let's go. Let's ride, baby. So a lot of the discussion is still relevant. You can still listen. It'll still be good. Just keep in mind, bumping up Herbert as being a priority, Hubbard for me being a priority, and being high on those guys primarily. I think and disregard Christian McCaffrey and me calling Matt Rule a liar. Okay, go listen, have fun, and good luck this week.
This is the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brandon Gadula and Jim Sonis.
In theory, the Week 6 NFL DFS main slate should be pretty good because we got Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, all these really fun guys. Kyler Murray in great situations, potential shootouts and spots we like. We've got some potential value running backs as well. The problem is that there are reasons for concern for every single person in this player pool. Name me one guy who does not have a red flag. Maybe Mahomes. But, like, it is a
Chris
tough...
Conley.
Okay, fair enough. You can go with that if you want. But it is a tough slate to dissect. There are risks, paths to failure for everyone. So we're going to break down those paths to failure, let you know who we are using despite those risks, and let you know our favorite plays for the Week 6 main slate. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by Numberfire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and Numberfire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for Numberfire.com, joined here as always by Brandon Gadula. He is the managing editor for Numberfire.com. And Brandon, not sure why you're here, because your role is the Chris Conley whisperer. You neglected to tell us that he had the baby narrative in his favor last week, and he scored. So what do you do here if you're not going to let us know when Chris Conley is guaranteed at least one touchdown?
Yeah, that's my one job, I guess.
You guess.
Yeah, that's all. Hey, well, look, now that we know, I'm done for you got the next hour and a half, so I did my...
Deuces. I don't want to talk about this late though by myself, so I need you here.
Well, Chris Conley also was, I think, like third worst in PPR points per snap again during last week. So mea culpa, but forgive. I think it was a little bit forgivable because he's out there running a lot of wind sprints, as they say.
But it's good. Got to get that work in after the baby. So I get it for sure, but. Happy to have you back here today because I think this is a difficult slate for me to diagnose because we're talking beforehand. I think I say the phrase paths to failure way too often on the show, but like every play I look at here has a path to failure outside of maybe the Chiefs-Washington game. But overall, there's a lot of risk on this slate. So how are you feeling? Are you more optimistic here? Am I overblowing it? Or are we on the same page?
I don't know if I've ever been optimistic about anything, but no, I mean, so when I saw that this was a 10-game slate, when we first looked at this thing on Monday, I was like, okay, there's some games that look good. It's going to be a pretty easy one to figure out. All we're going to have to do is narrow down the quarterbacks that we really want to play. Well, all the quarterbacks that we kind of settled on were the top 6 in salary, and they pretty much all have win concerns.
Yeah.
We had some value at running back, but now we have value at running back plus, I'm assuming Christian McCaffrey back, but also a really loaded like 7,000 tier. So we now have too many running backs to try to figure out. And if two of the value, we have really two extreme value backs with Devontae Booker and Darrell Williams. And if those guys kind of, get us 17, 18 points, you really need to make sure that the 7,000 backs like overperform that, which is kind of hard to do for a running back. I mean, unless they're getting 25, 30. So like, it's, you look at every position and it's like, it's kind of tricky to figure out what to do. So I don't really feel optimistic about the slate, but I do feel good because the more and more we talk about stuff, we figure things out, things start to click.
Yeah.
So I feel pretty, I feel optimistic that we'll figure it out by the end of the show. As of now, I feel like there's a lot that we need to talk through, that justify our concerns.
Yep, and we will do that in just 1 second. But first, a quick reminder to make sure you get yourself entered for the Listener League this week. As always, FanDuel.com/league/Listener League. FanDuel.com/league/Listener League to get yourself entered. It is a $5 entry with 3 entries max and no rake, so it is the best kind of contest you could possibly enter. Again, FanDuel tends to lose money on these contests, so go to FanDuel.com/league/Listener League. Take their money and run, because you should. FanDuel.com/league/Listener League. We just kind of went through the slate overview, but I do want to ask you again. I feel like, to me, this slate boils down to deciding which of the studs to prioritize after factoring in the red flags and deciding which of the value plays have the least concerning red flags. That's kind of the key thing for me. What about for you? What's standing out here?
Yeah, so you kind of have, like, okay, I'm just going to say these 6 quarterbacks. We have Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford. I have interest in all those guys. I don't have a whole lot of interest in anyone else, which feels
Not even Heineke, your boy?
I mean, maybe, but, you know, I know it's kind of, like, disappointing to hear that we just like the high salaried quarterbacks because it's not very fun, but these guys all have when we talk about paths, they have paths to 30 that other guys don't quite have. And, you know, sure, maybe Taylor Heineke can get to 30, but that's a little bit generous. And I understand that salary comes into play, but, you know, at a certain point, like we say, you have to score points eventually. So I think that overall for me, the main takeaway is how I'm viewing running back, because I'm either trying to save some salary with backs and allocate that salary elsewhere, or I'm saying, no, Christian McCaffrey is going to go for 30. We like Austin Eckler. Take your pick among the 7,000 backs, and that, you know, Devontae Booker and Darrell Williams specifically are just going to be fine, score maybe 12 points, and like that to me is kind of the decision I have to make. And yes, we can mix and match, but I usually get a little bit more specific with my running back pool.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the key thing for me is you said 12 points for Booker and Williams. And as we've discussed plenty of times in this podcast before, we need more. We need 20, realistically, from a value play at running back. And you've run your sims. We were talking about this before. You've got Darrell Williams at 10% to top 20% or 20 FanDuel points, and Devontae Booker's at 11%. That's not zero. So, you know.
It's 11% and 11.6% for Williams and Booker respectively. But, you know, by contrast, Antonio Gibson's at like 19%. I know the salaries are there, but, you know, you look at, if you know anything about probabilities, and trust me, I know very little. I was an English lit major, but you run, you know, a 9-player, including defense, you know, lineup, and you say, this guy's got like a 10 to 12% chance of hitting it big. Your probability for your whole lineup that it's going to hit big goes down. And, you know, we kind of have a lot of sayings at this point, but one thing that we do say a lot, especially with NFL, is you need to have guys who can make up for your mistakes. And someone like Antonio Gibson can help make up for a mistake a lot more easily than someone like Darrell Williams. So,
right.
You know, you and I are probably just going to be a little bit lower on those two specifically. Not to say that we don't like them.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. Sometimes there are value plays that are very difficult to see failing, like Alexander Mattison. Very tough to see him falling short in both his situations when he was there. It's very easy to see those guys come up short. But I'm still going to use them. I want to be very clear about that. I will still use both those guys because I have to. Yep. But I also don't want to go 60% exposure to them.
Yeah.
And so if I wind up being underweight, so be it.
Yeah. So like what I was alluding to was, you know, are we going to play 60, 75% of these guys like we did when Najee Harris was 6,100 in week 2. I played 100%. Madison, whenever he's low salaried, I'm not there.
Yeah.
And a key reason for that is I'm a little bit lower on those two specifically. For Williams, it's more about what workload he's going to get. And I used this example before the show, but if Clyde Edwards-Helaire was at 5,200, I'd play him. So I'm not going to say I'm not going to play Darrell Williams. We have some offensive concerns potentially for the Giants and Devontae Booker. But the big issue that I keep coming back to is we have a lot of running backs. It's not that we need value. So that's kind of my key issue with the slate. And maybe those guys just make it work, kind of consider them your flex plays. So you can get up to McCaffrey. Again, I'm cool with that, but I think to sum it up, the best way that I can is, like you said, is it a week where we go 60, 70, 80% for those guys? And I'm saying no.
I agree. We'll talk about injuries here in just 1 second, but first, the puck has dropped on a new NHL season, and FanDuel is celebrating with an NHL parlay insurance offer. All you have to do is place a 4+ leg parlay on NHL games between now and October 19th. If exactly one leg of your bet loses, you get a refund in site credit. Kick off the NFL or the NHL season the right way by heading over to FanDuel Sportsbook and placing an NHL parlay. It must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $25 per day. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit fanduel.com/RG. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. For confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-270-7117. In Tennessee, call the Red Line at 1-800-889-979. In West Virginia, 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Or in Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. Let's run through injuries impacting the main slate here. Christian McCaffrey was limited in practice on Wednesday with his hamstring injury. Everything points towards his playing, despite the fact that Matt Rule is a liar, saying that there is a 50% chance he plays this week. Pretty sure he's lying to you. We'll talk more about the Panthers with McCaffrey in the trend section because I'm pretty sure he's going to play. On the bright side, other side of that game, Dalvin Cook got in a limited session Wednesday. They've got a bye coming up, and I think that does impact things a bit here. But how are you thinking about Dalvin against Carolina, assuming he's good to return this week?
I feel like we're looking at the bye differently, but I feel like maybe we're a bye week away from a full workload for Dalvin. I don't understand. Okay. Like, it's frustrating for fantasy, but Alexander Madison's like good and the offense is fine with him playing. I don't know why there would be a need to play Dalvin Cook his full allotment of snaps. So that's a little bit worrisome. I think I'll probably be underweight on Dalvin this week. So what are you thinking with that bye? What were you alluding to?
Well, I think that they might. I think that increases the odds that he sits entirely because they have a bye to potentially give him an extra week to rest.
But if he plays...
I think the complicating factor here is that they're 2-3, I believe, and they almost lost to Detroit. Yeah. And Mike Zimmer thinks that they need Dalvin Cook, and Madison did fumble at the end of that game against the Lions, which is almost why they lost. I think that adds up to his potentially playing a more full workload than he did the first time he came back. With that said, is that worth prioritizing when I could pay $1,200 more to get to McCaffrey, who I do feel better about, which may feel weird, but I do feel better about him? Is it worth prioritizing Dalvin over Austin Eckler in a tremendous game? We know there are no injury concerns there, and the role is amazing. Is it better than Zeke? Better than Chubb? We've had our concerns with Nick Chubb, but he keeps producing, and at some point that matters. So I don't know. And is it better than peppering that 7,000 range, which I love at running back this week? Right. Probably not. So I think I'm on board with you, where even though I think there's a decent chance he gets good work this week because they feel like he gives them the best chance to win and they need wins, I still think I'm okay being on board with you and potentially being underweight on him if he does come back.
Yeah, at 8,800, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room for error. So we talked about guys getting us 12. If he gets us 15, that's a swing at one of those studs. And the reason that you want to allocate salary for studs is because they have slate altering upside. We know that McCaffrey has that. Eckler's shown that. Once you dip down into the sevens, like the 7,000 range, it's a little bit less. But if you take away Dalvin's ability to run away with the slate, then there's not as much appeal to roster him at 8,800.
And it's not just Dalvin over Eckler. It's Dalvin over Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, who are all in Mike Williams, who are all in really fun games this week. So that's the other issue I'm running into there. The Giants are super banged up. Saquon Barkley, Kenny Golladay, Daniel Jones all missed practice Wednesday. Barkley and Golladay seem almost locks to sit. Jones might be able to go. He was like going rogue and in full uniform, and then Joe Judge like kind of looked like he wanted to kill him, which just might be like the resting Joe Judge face of like, I kind of want to kill this guy. Like, I think that might be just the way his face works, but sounds like they think he's got a shot to get cleared in time for this game. They do seem like they'll be getting Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton back. Kadarius Toney should be able to play through his ankle injury. A lot to play with the Giants. We'll talk through them in the trends section. The Browns were down a bunch of key guys at practice on Wednesday. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, David Njoku all sat out, as did Myles Garrett. Doesn't seem to be a big concern about any of those guys, and we'll talk about them. And Kyler Murray's shoulder in the bookmaker section. Kyler was limited on Wednesday due to a shoulder injury. Final one, Joe Mixon got in a limited practice on Wednesday after not practicing at all prior to Saturday last week. So an improvement there. Samaje Perine is on the COVID list. Are you willing to buy back in on Joe Mixon against Detroit?
Yeah.
Fully.
I mean, how can you not? How can you not be? His workload's great. Like that's. I think the one we're talking about passive failure, and I don't want to talk myself out of this game, but
pace.
Well, there's pace, but I'm thinking about this, and this could be one of those spots where I don't know what time of day this game is. Looks like
it's noon. Everything's
one.
at noon. Or sorry, 1. Ooh,
oh,
wow,
buddy.
I went back to Minnesota time. Ooh.
Am I going to be sitting there at 3:00 being like, yeah, Joe Burrow's like can't really make calls, and they're doing all these hand signals, and it just makes the offense like, yeah, he's not. Joe Burrow's going to be a little bit quieter than Rosa. So
but yeah, Rosa has a lot to say about Joe Burrow in his throat.
So I'm just thinking about one of those, like, I'm digging through all the data, but one of those just like common sense, like, yeah, man, maybe he can't like scream his adjustments, and the offense like isn't as snappy with making changes.
Yeah, raucous crowd in Detroit for an 0-5 team, so I think that definitely plays into it. If it were anywhere else with a less competitive team, maybe not. But yeah, I think it'll be fine there. I actually kind of don't mind Burrow. It could be just me getting too worried about stuff, but like I don't think he's interesting with Mixon.
Worried about stuff as in wind with other quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
With Mixon, like I'm at 40% right now is in my head. Like I'm trying to think. I have not built like full lineups yet, but like in my head, that's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. If you give me a full practice Friday and take him off the injury report, we're pushing 60. Like that's where I'm at on Joe Mixon right now.
Yeah. I could see that. It's a look. I really think that this slate for me comes down to nitpicking through the running backs, and I really can't nitpick Mixon aside from the fact that his quarterback might be a little bit limited with the way that he can make adjustments. But with Detroit's defense, I don't think it's going to matter. So Mixon's not one of the guys I'm concerned about. So I'd say about 40% sounds right for me too.
And every practice rep he logs, that number goes up. We'll talk about the injuries we discussed before throughout the podcast for today, the ones we did not expand on there. So let's move to bookmaker info for this week. The highest total on this slate, deservedly so, is Washington hosting the Chiefs. That's up to 56 now, at the Chiefs favored by 6.5. Two bad defenses, two offenses that can move the football. I think like in terms of nitpicking, this is the one I can nitpick the least. The issue is salary. The Chiefs guys, obviously very high salary. Terry McLaurin is not low salary. We have guys like Darrell Williams, Mecole Hardman, Ricky Seals-Jones, Antonio Gibson, who are not super high salary, but if you want the studs, you got to pay for them. Does that influence how you're viewing this game at all relative to other ones, or is it the top one to stack regardless?
That the salaries are high for the Chiefs?
Very guilty.
No, I mean, that's always the case with the Chiefs, and it's generally worth the risk. We've seen consistency from Mahomes. We've seen some up and down from Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce a little bit, but that's what you expect from the Chiefs, is that the salaries are going to be high. The question is always, can we bring it back? And you mentioned the guys who make these stacks a little bit more appealing with Ricky Seals-Jones, Darrell Williams, and Mecole Hardman. So I don't have any real issues with this one aside from potentially the weather. 'Cause
Yeah,
this one's
it's not
got,
bad. It's at
but
13. That's not high enough where I'm worried yet. I would worry if it got higher.
yeah.
So I'm not worried yet, but that's one of the ones that's a lower concern for me.
And I have this one second in expected pace or average pace. It's not really a calculation of expected pace, but average pace. So I like that.
Yeah, if we're so like this is the week of the red flag meme on Twitter. If I were to allocate red flag emojis for this game, it's a half. It's a half red flag. Cleveland and Arizona has like 6, so this one's a half.
So it's out of,
it's out of however many I need to allocate it. This one's just a half.
I figure it's out of 17 or so.
Yeah, roughly. We might get there with Arizona, Cleveland. But this one's at a half red flag, and I think that's fine. I'll take a half red flag. I think this is the best game to stack on this slate, even after considering salary. If you put in Mahomes, Tyreek, McLaurin, you're at 58-17 left. I can make that work. Does mean I have to be okay with Booker. Does mean I have to be okay with Williams potentially being included in this game stack too. That's fine. I will make those consolations to get to Mahomes, Tyreek, McLaurin, and I'm fine with that. What's your first question, what's your prioritization in terms of the higher salary guys? Are you going, is it a Tyreek week or is it a Kelsey week?
Honestly, I think I'm to the point where it's always Tyreek because he's the guy who can get you 40. Kelsey, I know, has to be compared to other tight ends, but we have Mark Andrews on the slate, and his combo of some upside and value, I think, is really unprecedented. Darren Waller, at least ostensibly, still has the ceiling. Feels a lot like last year where big game early, like good usage, just
lulls us to sleep.
And I'm like,
and then
no.
Bam.
Yeah. And nobody cares about my season long team, but in a very important matchup, I ended up facing Darren Waller both of those weeks. So I'm sure a lot of people got that end of it based on how scheduled.
When do you face him next? Just so I can log that in my head.
Well, I have him in one league, so that's been
okay,
rough,
cool.
But,
that helps.
But yeah, I remember that vividly and how dispersed those big games were. But I think for me, it's going to be Kelsey second behind Tyreek, and I want Terry McLaurin, but he's not really on par with the two Chiefs guys. Where are you with those two? I
think I go Tyreek over Kelsey too. Mm-hmm. I'd agree. McLaurin, like if I'm thinking about like overall exposure levels, I'm likely to have more McLaurin than Kelsey. So I guess I technically might be higher on him, but it's not because I think the McLaurin is under salary despite the fact that he is 7'4", and we got a lot of good dudes in this slate. I think he's under salaried still. Is that fair to say? Or is that me being too into McLaurin?
I think he's about right. I would start to hesitate if he was like 77 or 78. I'd still play him, but
yeah,
not to that point. So I feel like this is probably a fair number. I know he'll be relatively popular, but he's coming off of an 11 target but 4 catch game, so that might keep things a little bit in check if people are just looking at box score numbers. But
I think this game will be popular enough where it won't matter.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be the main factor there. But either way, I think this is a great game. What about the value plays here? We got Darrell, we've got Mecole Hardman, we have Antonio Gibson is lower salaried, Ricky Seals-Jones, De'Ami Brown sounds like he'll be back this week. What are you feeling with regards to the lower salary dudes in this game?
I like Ricky Seals-Jones because any tight end with a semblance of a pulse is in play.
Not even like a pulse. Like, have you ever at one point had a pulse? You don't just have it now, ever. I played Jared Cook last week, so like I don't need a current pulse, just at some point pulse.
Yeah. But Seals-Jones, 8 targets, 3 red zone, 99% of the snaps last week, like that. And Mecole Hardman, really good workload. Josh Gordon, I think, had 2 routes. I think there's plenty of time that remains before Josh Gordon kind of phases out Mecole Hardman if that ever happens.
Yeah.
And this is coming from someone who likes Josh Gordon plenty, but I feel really good with Mecole Hardman as a way to get to Mahomes. And so like Mahomes, Hardman plus Terry can really help. I feel good with Darrell Williams, good enough. Again, like I'd play Clyde Edwards-Helaire at this salary, but again, not really someone I'm gonna be putting into like 60-70% of my lineup. It's gonna be more of a 30%, a little bit more into not game stack only territory, but much more likely to play him when I'm stacking up this game, or at least running it back with Seals Jones or Terry McLaurin. So, that's where I am.
I think something that's kind of fun for this game is having Chief stacks. So having Mahomes, Darrell, Tyreek, and then not putting Seals Jones in there. Because I feel like the mindset will be, okay, I need to save salary, so I'll put Seals Jones in there. I think David Njoku, if he gets to be fully healthy this week and we can get some credits in the win there. Tyler Higbee's 55. Sorry. Eventually I'll stop saying his name. I think that omitting either Darrell or Ricky Seals Jones from Mahomes stacks, if you can, is ideal, because I feel like people are just going to use that same structure. Okay, Mahomes, Tyreek, save some salary with Darrell or RSJ.
Well, that's
Hardman works too. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's why I think my favorite is going to be Mahomes, Hardman, Terry.
Yep, I think that's fun. I like that combination. I can get there for sure. Hard for me to say no to Tyreek, but I mean, it's a very different situation.
Well, you can't say yes in every lineup.
Right, correct.
Although I have considered it, if I just play him in every lineup, the week that he eventually puts up 40.
I mean, again?
Yeah.
Or puts up 30 for the third time this year.
If I just locked him in every single week, statistically, that might be a good long-term play.
Yep, I would agree with that one. I am okay glossing over De'Ami Brown, despite the fact he's going to be back this week, most likely. Are you on the same page?
Yeah, and I'm not making this a big part of my process, but out of curiosity, I was looking at fantasy points per snap, and he's not rated out very well in that.
No, he played every snap the first 2 weeks and got 4, 6, 2, and 2, I think, targets. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree. Okay, any final thoughts on this game?
I like it. I think it's number one for both of us, and hopefully we have better luck with our number one stack for this week than we did last week.
What was number one last week?
Cowboys, Giants.
Oh, man.
Which, again, was it 64 total points? Could have been awesome.
Oh, I had a decent early slate, and then Saquon.
Yep, you're just we need some Saquon, some Tony. We got the Tony, but
Keenan. Had a lot of Keenan, which is a fish move, I know, but whatever. Bummer of the week is the Cardinals-Browns game. The total here opened at 53.5. It was up to 54. It's all the way down to 49, likely due to the forecast. Currently calling for 19-mile-per-hour winds there. We talked about weather last year and how players typically underperform their projections. Quarterbacks underperform by about 7% in high wind situations of 15-plus miles per hour. So, assuming this forecast holds, how does it alter your view of this game?
It's gotta downgrade it. And we're talking about fish moves. It could be a fish move to avoid this game because of wind, but I feel like it's also a fish move to ignore this. So I think either way, I'm going to play both sides. That way I come out on top. I'm going to say it's a fish move either way. But yeah,
you got both tweets and drafts just ready to fire.
Yeah, imagine stacking this game or imagine fading it because of
correct. Wind. Yeah, just type them out both out. Make sure you hit the right one, though.
Yeah, I just we know the impact of wind on passing. I'm still down on the Browns overall, where I get the case for Odell Beckham. I see the case still even after the 3 target 2 catch game in that shootout, but he's at 75% of the snaps or so the past 2 games. He's just coming back from that injury. It's a really high variance player with his downfield work, but the odds he gets downfield targets in heavy wind go down. So,
right.
And I'm sorry, I'm just never going to load up on the Browns running backs. So I'm down on this game. I'm down on I don't know how many Browns I'll actually get to. The Cardinals have their market share concerns, so yeah, I'm down on this one as well. What about you?
I think it lowers me. It doesn't push me off entirely, but it does lower me a lot. Kyler, if you gave me healthy Kyler with no shoulder injury, with Rodney Hudson at center and no wind, Kyler would be my favorite quarterback on the slate.
Yeah.
But his shoulder's banged up now. Rodney Hudson is out, and the winds are 19 miles per hour. This one is at least 6 red flags, whereas the last one was a half.
Yeah.
Expanding more on wind quickly, last year, there were 11 quarterbacks who were popular, top 3 in roster rate on the FanDuel main slate, the FanDuel Sunday Million. Only 5 of them hit their baseline value for the position, so it's 46%, whereas 77% of quarterbacks in wind speeds of 0 to 4 miles per hour hit their baseline. That's a concern. Also, we don't see a big roster rate decrease because 22% of all popular quarterbacks last year were in high wind games. Or 10 plus mile per hour wind games. So I know people say, oh, people overreact to wind. And it's like, no, they don't. They actually don't react probably enough to wind. So it's not going to cross Kyler Murray off for me. It just puts it in a situation where I know we're trying to avoid having a 10% play at quarterback in terms of exposure. I'll probably be there with Kyler this week because if I take, his baseline projection and lower at 7%, then I still want to get some because he's Kyler Murray, but then I lowered a bit more because of the shoulder injury and I get down to a 10% situation and, that might not be a great process, but I think that there's still a path to him being good. I just don't want to have a lot of it given that there are a lot of red flags around this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those spots where this game could erupt and then people will remember it as the time that everyone overreacted.
Yeah.
But that's going to that happens. That's why I look almost primarily at ranges of outcomes and just see what is to be expected, because Christian McCaffrey is not going to lead this slate. Let's say he's healthy. He's not going to lead the slate guaranteed. It's not a lock button that he leads the slate in FanDuel points. It's just not how it works. So they're within the range of outcomes for this game is that it hits the over, that there's a lot of points still, but long-term over a big sample, as you mentioned, as we talked about last year, I think in more detail, it's better to play games in domes. I talked about that one. It's better to downgrade games in wind, and there's still an edge according to the data that you cited. So I think that I'm going to be low on this game.
Will you have we're lowering Kyler?
Yeah.
Does this lower your enthusiasm around mini stacks with DeAndre Hopkins and Nick Chubb, DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham, Rondale Moore as a one-off play?
It does, just because the way that I'm thinking about probability at this point is the market shares they're starting to favor DeAndre Hopkins again, which is what you want to see, but it's still pretty low. I think it's 22% for him or something like that. But you want to talk about probability from a dispersed market share that goes down. You want to talk about probability from Odell Beckham, who is really reliant on downfield targets, which he hasn't really reeled in right now. If that all clicks, yeah, great game. And we can be kicking ourselves for downgrading it. But probability wise, everyone gets downgraded. And also probability wise, Kareem Hunt is substantially overperforming on a per snap basis. I don't want to be chasing those situations, especially when I don't like the game. So
I'm not considering Hunt, so I don't even feel the need to talk about him. With Chubb, though, he's at 112 yards in scrimmage per game. That is 11.2 FanDuel points with no catches, which is probably accurate for him, with no catches and no touchdowns. That's not bad. That is number 2 on the slate behind McCaffrey in terms of yards and scrimmage per game, and the Cardinals' rush defense can get a little leaky. So I think that if I'm looking at the Browns and I do, let's say the wind comes down and I feel a good stack in this game, I feel like Chubb would be the first place I'd go to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird because it goes against our process. He has 2, 1, 0, 1, and 1 targets, which is conveniently 1 per game. That's not what we try to get exposure to, because a target is worth twice as many fantasy points for a running back on average. So, he's going to get 20 carries, probably going to get maybe 1 target. That's he's got to have the yardage. It's got to be there. And he needs a touchdown. It's just a really narrow path for Nick Chubb always, and that's why I don't play as much Nick Chubb as a lot of people.
Yeah, the narrow path does exist, though, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially in this game, it could be there. Other thing I would note with Nick Chubb, he actually has 41% of the team's red zone touches or opportunities so far this year. Kareem Hunt's at 25%. Chubb just hasn't converted, so that's going to swing back towards him eventually. I don't think Chubb is anywhere near a cash game play. He's a 15% tournament play. I'm fine with that. I think that's kind of where he fits. Let's talk about the other game here. The total has been up a bit for the Chargers and the Ravens. Open at 50. Slowly, steadily inching up. Some weather concerns here in terms of wind, but similar to the Chiefs and Washington, where it's not overly concerning, just kind of something to monitor for right now. Ravens are 3-point favorites, which is ideal for stacking. High total, tight spread. Where does this one grade out for you, and how are you looking to stack it?
I think probably second behind the Kansas City game. Looking to stack it a lot of ways, honestly. Lamar and Mark Andrews is probably the standout stack for me. Lamar's rushing is still there. The passing efficiency is now there, which is what you've always wanted. Everyone's always wanted from Lamar from a fantasy standpoint. Mark Andrews up to 27% target share the past 3 games for Baltimore. His salary is still low, and like I was down on Mark Andrews after his slow start. I don't feel that way anymore. So that's going to be my primary stack, and I'm going to bring it back with any number of the Chargers. With Eckler, Keenan, and Mike Williams, I'm probably going to do it most often with Eckler and be second on Keenan, who has a lot of regression coming his way, which makes me sound low on Mike Williams, and I'm not. Love Mike Williams, but the salary is a bit harder to get to. So I like a lot of this game, and honestly, it's probably both quarterbacks, Eckler, Marquise, both Chargers receivers, and Mark Andrews, and like that's all we have to consider, which is like enough options to do it, to stack it up differently and differentiate, but not so many that we're just guessing. Is that about right?
Yes, okay. I agree. I think that's why it's firmly 2, and you could talk me into putting it Chiefs above Chiefs, but I wouldn't do it personally. But I think it's like in that same tier. I think those are the top 2 in terms of tiering things out. I agree that Lamar and Mark Andrews is a superb stack. I think Andrews is amazing as a one-off as well. As like, I think a fun construction given how many tight ends will be used in Chiefs-Washington stacks. A fun construction is Mahomes at quarterback and stacking that game, but putting Mark Andrews at tight end. Because I feel like that'll be like, we talk about combinations, I think that combination is going to be pretty unpopular this week, which I like a lot. So I think that's pretty interesting to me. And like, if I have a single lineup, very tempted by that if I don't put Lamar as my quarterback there, which I will. The reason that I'd favor Andrews over Marquise Brown, despite the fact that Marquise Brown is getting really good usage, is because Brandon Staley's like key tenet is like not letting up deep balls, and that's where Marquise Brown wins. He wins on deep balls, constantly open downfield somehow. I don't think that'll happen as often against this defense. So I still think I will use Marquise Brown in game stacks, but I want to prefer Mark Andrews. As far as the Chargers guys, I might go Keenan over Eckler. It's very close. Just because Eckler's salary's gone up, I think that's justified. It should go up like it needs to, but like, Keenan's going to hit eventually, given the targets he's getting from a really good quarterback against a secondary that just got shredded by a large receiver in Michael Pittman, which does fit for Mike Williams too. But I think that all adds up to be where I think going in on Keenan once again is probably where I'll wind up. I don't know. I think it was the wrong process to do that last week because Williams coming off a poor game. He wasn't super high salaried. I should have been more on him. I was on him, but I should have been more on him last week. I think
7,700.
What's that?
I thought Mike Williams was 7,700.
Yeah, but right? He's coming off a down game because it was Monday nights. They didn't price him down. So I should have been on him, or more on him, I should say.
Yeah,
but I think I'll go back to Keenan this week.
So I run some regression stuff, which is not like the least surprising thing ever. But I have Mike Williams overperforming at the second highest rate in expected touchdowns among receivers, and Keenan underperforming at the highest rate. So, eventually, if that turns around, then it's going to be a Keenan game because the volume's still there for Keenan Allen with 8+ in every game. So I'm high on Keenan Allen regardless. I'm not bumping down Mike Williams because he scored touchdowns, but we know again, long term, it probably makes sense to scale back on expectations for Mike Williams if he's overperforming there. Guys can overperform for a full season. Better players can overperform. The the guys at the top are always like Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and expected touchdowns because they're very good. But I'm totally in on Keenan, and I did not want to make it sound like I was down on him.
Yeah. I will say that straight up, Williams is better because he gets more downfield targets. So if we're picking straight up, it'd be Mike Williams, and that's why I'm not saying to avoid him, which is what you're saying too. But that's the reason why I like Keenan a lot, or why, I think that Keenan still grades out really well here. What about Justin Herbert? We love Lamar. I think I can put words in your mouth there. Where are you at on Justin Herbert this week?
I like him. He's part of that top 6. Again, I know it sounds like, who are these donkeys just talking about the 6 highest salary quarterbacks as the guys they're playing, but
it's really hard not to.
Like there are 10 games on this slate. Some of them are just not very appealing. Like
I don't know, man. Those Derek Carr stacks looking pretty saucy this week.
So, we don't want to do that. We're not going to, we always are hating on Kirk Cousins, but I'm not going to play Kirk Cousins whenever I can have some of these other quarterbacks. So, with Herbert, he might be Lamar's probably number 1, Mahomes 2 at salary. Herbert very easily could be number 3.
Herbert or Dak?
So it's almost a toss up, but I'm probably leaning Herbert. I never really like to go against Patriots just because you never know what's going to be cooked up there. I'm probably going to go Herbert there as my number 3.
Very tempted by Dak. I think
so
Dak's really interesting this week. I might go him above Herbert, but that's not anti-Herbert. It's just very pro-Dak. I think that they're both very... I'd agree that they're the guys competing for third right now. I think we're on the same page there when it comes to quarterback. Okay, let's move now to the trends discussion, taking a look at some things impacting our lineups this week. You are looking at the Patriots market shares because we both like that game, that Chargers-Cowboys, or that Patriots-Cowboys game. But the problem is, and I want to use Dak, I want to use Amari, I want to use Zeke. I don't know who the bleep I'm supposed to run it back with. Tell me what to do here.
Well, we're talking about quarterbacks and stuff, and we have a great game from a pace standpoint, and we have Mac Jones sitting there at 6,500, and it's okay, great game, low salary, maybe there's something here, but here's why we're not playing a lot of low salary quarterbacks this year. So I'll just start from the overview. We talk about pace a lot, and the pace here is the tops for the main slate according to my average pace stats, which weed out garbage time. This game has a high total. We want to, as you mentioned, we want to play the Cowboys, so I feel like I have to do my due diligence, and that's going to lead me to the Patriots here to examine, not leading me to the Patriots to play necessarily, although maybe there's something here. But if you look at quarterback Mac Jones, again, 6,500 on FanDuel is his salary. His passing efficiency thus far, according to NumberFire's metrics, have him at a passing net expected points per dropback of 0.00, which sounds like it might be average, but it's not, because you actually should expect to put points on the board when you drop back to pass, not stay in neutral. The NFL average this season is a 0.15. It's been a very efficient start to the season in terms of passing. So we don't have that for Mac Jones. Even if you adjust for his opponents, he's at a negative 0.1 per dropback. So he's underperformed when you include context. Now, the ADOT for Mac Jones is actually 7.4, which is almost the NFL average. But he had one game in week 3 where he threw 14 times downfield, which we consider 16 plus air yards from the line of scrimmage. If you remove that game, because it was a clear outlier, because he's had 4 or fewer such attempts in his other 4 starts, his ADOT is 5.6, which is not good. That's like end of career Drew Brees, where he's just, basically throwing handoffs. So I can't get to Mac Jones despite the low salary and the good game because there's not a whole lot to like. So I want to make it clearer why we were separating so much with these high salaried quarterbacks. Someone like Mac Jones just doesn't really have the win juice to get up there in fantasy points. So
win juice, yeah.
Now we generally know by now that Jacoby Myers is the team's wide receiver 1. He's at a 25% target share, 29% of the air yards. That works out to 9.2 targets per game. Adjusting for some context there with downfield and red zone work, it's worth about 11 targets per game. But after that, nobody's above a 15% target share. So it's kind of just Jacoby Myers in that from that context, from the season-long standpoint. Last week, however, Hunter Henry did lead the team with 29% of the targets. He had 8 targets, 2 deep, and 1 red zone. He has a 19% target share over the past 2 games with 2 combined high leverage targets per game in that sample. This is despite just 58% of the routes. But that target per route rate over the past 2 games ranks him 4th among tight ends behind just Dalton Schultz, Mark Andrews, and coincidentally, teammate Jonnu Smith.
Is that because Jonnu Smith is no longer allowed to run routes and now is a tackle?
Yeah. So, again, we're always hating on tight end. We like this game. Hunter Henry's been more involved the past 2 weeks. It's a new team. It kind of makes sense that it might have been a little bit of a slow start. I really don't want to look at the running backs, so I'm just going to skip over that section. So.
Works for me.
Now, I'm not saying I love this offense, but between possibly Jacoby Myers and Hunter Henry, there's some bring back appeal. Is there enough for you with this offense to feel like this game can stay competitive and therefore keep the Cowboys relevant? And is there enough for you, most specifically with those 2 guys, to consider bringing it back with them at all?
So do you know Hunter Henry's salary?
I think it's 54.
It's 56, which is pure booty. He should be 49. But you're right. He'd be number 2 in terms of whom I'd want to target here, but that's just a lot. The yardage has been pretty good, so I think that I'll use him, but it's a bad salary and I'm annoyed by it. Other question for you is, if you had to guess, I have RotoGrinders projected roster rates pulled up right now. If you want to guess where Jacoby Myers is, just ballpark it.
18.
21.8.
That's high.
I would take the under on that number just because I've seen a lot of tweets about how Jacoby Myers can't score touchdowns, and I feel like that will linger in people's minds, much like it has mine. So I think he's the obvious bring back here, and then Hunter Henry is 2, and then there's no one else I want to use on this team, which is reassuring. But the problem is I don't think I'll be alone in doing that, which is pretty annoying. So people tend to like Jacoby Myers a lot more than I do. I just like this game a lot, so I think it'll naturally funnel me towards that. But I will also say, if I get to Dak, I'm okay having lineups where there is no bring back. I did that for the first time all year last week with Kyler a couple times, which didn't work out because Kyler kind of let us down. But I'll do it again this week with Dak. I think that I'd rather have no bring back than force myself to have every Dak lineup tied to either Jacoby Myers or Hunter Henry.
Yeah, that was going to be the counter argument to all of this, is that it's really important if you're building stacks. Maybe you're using an optimizer and you're saying, hey, if Dak's in this lineup, I want to bring back, but I'm only using these 2 guys, and both of them just bust, then Dak eruption games are going to be, again, you can still have a good day. You can still win tournaments depending, but the probability of that just drops a ton if you're taking a brick in one of those spots. So there's enough for me to consider both of those guys, which is more than I could have said probably before I really dug in. But again, just going to be a little bit spottier with that. So, and again, like you said, not stacking every lineup that has Dak with those 2 guys.
How are you viewing the Cowboys offense here? I think the Dak is really intriguing. The one downside that I have is I think the spread is shorter than it should be. It's not 3.5. I have it at 7. Partly because I have home field being a little bit less. Also because I think the Patriots suck. But I think this game is less competitive than it's being billed as. So I still like Dak and I like Amari and CeeDee Lamb. But that's the one kind of hang up that I get. I'm still going to use them, but that does kind of make me interested in Zeke too. So what's your thoughts on this game? The Cowboy side of this game.
Yeah, I like those 4 specifically. I don't know if I'm going to play Dalton Schultz this week because I'm pretty sure his salary is still elevated.
65.
Yeah, 65. That's a lot for a game where we might not think it's competitive. The saving grace for me is the pace is high. and that helps me. If I had to rank them, I'd probably go with Amari number one, kind of, which is weird because the salary's there. I love building around those like high $6,000, low $7,000 receivers because those are typically the guys with good roles but who have underperformed. And for Zeke himself, it's more running backs loaded, so I feel a little bit less like I have to go there. But I'm gonna play all four of their top guys.
Yeah, running backs loaded. His role's not as good as Eckler's. So, if you're in that range, and plus, I'd rather just get to McCaffrey at that point. So that's the two arguments against him, but I'll still use him. I think that there's a good path to him being really solid here. But overall, I think Dak is in contention with Herbert to be number 3. The reason I might go Herbert is because the odds that game is competitive are much higher. I've got it as like a pick, whereas this one I do favor the Cowboys by a decent amount. Let's move now to my first trend here, talking about the Giants, because we don't know who will quarterback for them yet. Obviously, that influences how we view their offense and the Rams. Let's go through Daniel Jones and Mike Glennon to decide how to handle things here, depending on who starts a quarterback. If it's Jones, I think we can feel great about this game and stacking both sides. Jones is at 0.22 passing net expected points per dropback across his 5 games this year. After adjusting for schedule, the Giants rank 10th in schedule-adjusted passing offense. The Rams' defense has taken a step back this year. They rank 13th in schedule-adjusted pass defense. So if Jones plays, I would say fire up Devontae Booker with confidence. We can feel good about Kadarius Toney, et cetera, et cetera. It is a downgrade of Mike Glennon, but it's not the end of the world. Last year with the Jags, Glennon averaged negative 0.04 passing net expected points per dropback. That was between Gardner Minshew at 0.11 and Jake Luton at negative 0.21. Glennon was willing to let her rip. His 8-out was 8.0, which is decently fun. More fun than Mac Jones. And he was pretty similar to what he did with the Jags last week in relief of Daniel Jones. Glennon was at 0.02 passing net expected points per dropback. 8-out was 8.2. That was with no Shepard and no Slayton, who should be back for this week. So if Glennon starts, he'd likely be below average, but not a disaster as a passer, and he'd be willing to go deep. That means that while we downgrade Booker and Toney, I don't think it pushes them out of play on a slate where we really want value. I think the bigger takeaway is that it might lower the appeal in Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. Darrell Henderson remains fine. Wouldn't impact me on him, but I don't think it'd be a big enough blowout where he would lose targets. So I'd be fine with him still, but Woods and Kupp would be tougher. So that's where I'm at on these guys. Brandon, how are you viewing the Giants under Jones versus under Glennon?
Yeah, you mentioned Glennon's passing net expected points per dropback last year. I have it a lot worse once you adjust for opponent, unfortunately. So that's a drawback that I'll have that might be overstated. It's a better situation with this team than with who we had last year to throw to. But, obviously with Jones, we feel a lot better. I think the big thing for me is going to be where we land with Devontae Booker. And I think that's the best point here, because if it's Glennon, I could really see myself just avoiding Booker and hoping that he does bust. Sorry, Devontae, for watching. All the best. But, I feel like I'm higher on Daniel Jones than you are, and maybe lower on Mike Glennon. But I'm going to play the Rams regardless, just because I like what their passing offense does. I guess maybe it's not the hugest gap between these two, but I really want Daniel Jones to start, and I feel like he's going to. So in that sense, I'll have a lot of stacks of this game, and it could creep up to number 3 for me if Jones plays. How high are you in this game? Where would you rank this game with Jones, and where would you rank this game with Glennon?
If it's Jones and we assume that the weather holds and Kyler's shoulder continues to be a concern, I might put it 3rd too. Okay. Patriots, Cowboys, maybe. It'd be in the top 5 though, I think, right?
Well, that's just top half.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's true. Glennon, if it's Glennon, I would say I'll be in on Darrell Henderson. I'll still use Booker and still use Toney, but that's kind of it for me. Whereas if Jones goes, I will use Booker, Toney, Henderson, be okay with Woods and Kupp. Higbee, I guess I'll use too. So I think that if it's Jones, it opens up more guys in the game, but I'm going to use guys on both sides regardless.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of the same place. I'll
Okay.
use a little bit of both, but I mean, so so if it's Glennon, is it just Tony for you
Yeah, I mean,
for
like
the
you could
Giants
definitely
game?
make a strong case for Shepard because they clearly value him. He'll still be on the field with Tony emerging. He's $6,200. Um, I would probably not get there, but like I think he's still like in consideration and someone I would look at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reason why I would say Dallas, New England would take preference for me if it's Glennon and put that
Yeah,
game third.
yeah,
So
I agree.
yeah,
If it's Glenn and I firmly agree. If it's Jones, I think it's a consideration between those two.
yeah.
Also, I don't think we're high. I don't think you're too much higher on Daniel Jones than me anymore. I was before,
Okay.
but
I got you.
I'm there now. Let's move to your second trend, talking about that Bengals-Lions game. This game is indoors, which is good because no wind, we hope, unless something goes very wrong in Detroit. But it's slow. So what are you seeing with this game?
Yeah, so this game could be number 3, depending on how some things fall. I have my pace stats, which look at just plays, passes, and rushes. Doesn't include things like field goals and punts. And I don't know if other stats do that or not, but that's probably why my stats are a little bit different than what I find elsewhere. But um, based on pace, my numbers say to stay away from the big cat showdown here with the Bengals and Lions because it rates with the second slowest average pace on the main slate, besting only the Raiders and Broncos by just a tenth of a second per play. So it's close to being worst. I don't like that, Jim. I'm not a fan of
Not great,
that.
Bob.
But it is worth noting as well that the trends here are bad with the Bengals play volume. If you exclude overtime, they've averaged 52.4 plays per game, which I'm including just passes and rushes. That's 10 plays worse than the NFL average in that sample. For the Lions, though, they're actually 7th at 66.6. So the pace might not be great, but the Lions can still kind of move some things around in terms of plays per game. Despite that, this is one of the more appealing main slate games to me. That's kind of slotted in as 4th behind the games we've already talked about. And if we get Mike Glennon, it might bump up to 3rd, honestly. The total is 47.5 points. It's in a dome, which you mentioned. I talked a few weeks ago about the positive impact of dome games and how, we'll get windier games throughout the season. We kind of have that this week. So we got to bump that up for whatever reason. Could be variance, but I've looked at, performance based on over under, and 47.5 since 2015 seems to be like a pretty key number where we get some extra points. So it could be a little bit closer to a 50-point over under than something like 44.5 if we want to bump it up 3 points. So I think that this game has a lot of ways to be good. And you mentioned maybe liking Joe Burrow. I like Joe Burrow plenty. Not 100% sure I'll get there, but he's had plus passing efficiency after opponent adjustments. Jared Goff has not, but he's been kind of fine overall, at least not bad enough to avoid the entire offense. And if we can trust that these offenses won't run 50 plays each against each other, puts a lot of options in play. Joe Mixon, we talked about, but that salary of 7,000, 25.3 adjusted opportunities per game, which is carries plus 2x targets prior to week 5. That's good. Jamar Chase, 23% target share in 3 shared games with T. Higgins, who's at 24% himself. But last week it was Chase leading the team with 27% with T. Higgins at 19%. The Lions, surprisingly horrible in adjusted FanDuel points per target allowed to receivers. The other side's a little bit trickier with DeAndre Swift. I feel really good at 7,100. I'm going to play a lot of him. The workload's been great. But we also have some value potentially with Amon-Ra St. Brown at 5,200. He's had 8 targets in both games. It's the past 2 games, which works out to 24% in that sample. 3.5 high leverage looks per game in that sample as well. TJ Hawkinson's a little bit more of a concern. His red zone share has really dropped off the past 3 games. It was 44% through week 2 and 8% the past 3 games. But even if you tell me we've got Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, and DeAndre Swift alone, that's enough for me to mini stack this one. I could see myself getting to these other options though. So ultimately, what are you seeing with this game and where are you kind of ranking it?
Yeah, I think that I'm okay ranking it lower, but like just because of the pace, I think the pace is a big concern. It should get better with the Bengals finally passing now because there's heavy overlap between passing and pace, and they were very run heavy the first couple weeks when Burrow was coming off that ACL. I think they feel more comfortable opening things up now, which might be good, but it's still not something I'm super optimistic about there. So that's a good thing. I think that Chase makes a lot of sense. I think that I love Mixon, obviously. Mixon or Swift for you?
Probably Mixon just because you should have less competition for anything, but I love DeAndre Swift.
I think I'll go Mixon too. But I think Swift is definitely in consideration in that very, very good tier. What about Swift or Darrell Henderson?
Probably Swift.
I go Henderson because of the offense. Do you want to bet there?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't feel good enough about that.
Okay, fair enough. Figured I'd at least try it. I have Henderson over Swift, but I think both are really good options for this week. As far as the Lions, I have to apologize. I scoffed at you when you brought up Amon-Ra St. Brown on Monday as being someone who could benefit with Quintez Cephas being out. That was wrong because my checklist at receiver is you need to be able to get 85 yards or 2 touchdowns. The 85 yards is in play. He had 3 deep targets, I think, 2 weeks ago, facing the Bengals. The Bengals defense has played well, but they're not infallible by any means. So he's like not the highest upside guy, but he has the potential to get some deep targets. So I think that's I'm more open to it now, especially given how value strapped I think will be on this slate. So to me, love Mixon, okay with Swift, but rank it below Mixon and Henderson, and St. Brown now a guy I'm willing to get to just because I think they will need the salary savings there.
And where are you with Hawkinson? Because we're always
Not
looking
there.
for tight ends.
I'm not using him. Nope. Andrews is $100 lower salary. I've got Seals Jones. I've got potentially Njoku. No.
Not even with
He's
that
hurt.
hair, though, in his...
He's hurt, man.
pick?
I don't, know, that shows the head and the hair, but doesn't show the ankle or whatever it is that's ailing him. His knee. I think it's a legit thing. So I'll pass. Let's move now to my second trend. Talk about the Panthers' offense with Christian McCaffrey. He was limited in practice Wednesday. He's going to play. He practiced last week. Rodney Smith was released on Monday, and he's going to play. It does alter this offense pretty dramatically. McCaffrey played 2.25 games before his injury. That was partly against the Jets and Texans, but they also faced the Saints in there. So wasn't all easy defenses, but with McCaffrey on the field, the Panthers averaged 0.30 EPA per dropback according to Next Gen Stats. It fell to negative 0.16 without him. And that gap it's overzealous, to say the least. It won't be that the same over a larger sample, but it is very fair to say, which you said on Monday, that McCaffrey does positively impact the passing game for this team. That matters. Everybody benefits from a more efficient offense, and it makes this game more attractive if he's in it. And it also really narrows the Panthers' targets down from being just a two-man team. In the 2 full games with McCaffrey, DJ Moore has 28% of the targets. McCaffrey has 22%. Nobody else is higher than 14%. And it does mean that there's no value, but I'm okay with that. We know where the ball's going here. As such, I think that getting stacks in this game of McCaffrey with Justin Jefferson with DJ Moore is pretty attractive. Dalvin we've talked about a bit where I don't know where I sit there, but I think getting some mini stacks here of McCaffrey running it back with Justin Jefferson or DJ Moore with Jefferson, I think that's kind of in play this week. But in general, my takeaway here is I want to be high on Christian McCaffrey. If you look at the total yardage per game for running backs in their most relevant samples on the main slate, Christian McCaffrey is 50 yards ahead of everybody else on this slate. With no Derrick Henry, he's the guy. So Brandon, I want to get to Christian McCaffrey. I want to actively try to be overweight on him for this week. Where are you at of McCaffrey and this Panthers offense?
Love McCaffrey, believe it or not. He's the big dog. With the big dog playing Monday night, he's the big dog for this slate.
He should be the skinny cat, I think. Skinny cat, if we're going to call Henry the big dog.
The big cat? He's not really skinny.
No, skinny cat. He's a little skinny. Skinny cat, because skinny cats are cool as long as they're well fed and well nourished.
I'll All cats are cool, man. But yeah, all cats are cool. Yeah, McCaffrey is, if he's good to go, he's the play of the week. It's just he's 50-50. So, I can't get. I know. I can't get.
Matt Rule. Okay, sorry. Matt Rule said last week they were hopeful he'd play. He was doubtful. This week he's 50-50. You don't go from hopeful to doubtful, or to 50-50, unless you're a liar and trying to throw the other team off your scent. Like, he's lying. If McCaffrey sits, my fault. I'm sorry, but you'll know before kickoff anyway. So who cares? He's gonna play.
That's the big thing here. And in his two full games, just dominant. 6 red zone carries per game, 7.5 targets per game. Like, if he's healthy and he plays, we're gonna play him. I feel like it's very different than if Dalvin Cook plays. I would have a lot less concern that McCaffrey would be limited than Dalvin Cook, just because the Vikings have Alexander Mattison, the Panthers don't. So yeah, I mean, for me, if McCaffrey plays, he's 70% potentially, which means that I'm going to be low on the value backs unless I pair McCaffrey with the value backs and then gloss over the 7,000 tier, which I know already I'm not going to do that too much. So
I think the issue I'll have with getting that high on McCaffrey is that I want Mahomes, and that's going to be tough to get both. Unless you go Hardman, which again, we mentioned is in play. If you go like Mahomes, Hardman, Seals, Jones, you can make it work, but I'll be a little bit lower than 70% on McCaffrey, but I want to be actively overweight. I would guess McCaffrey, unless we get like really good news before Friday, probably going to settle in somewhere around 10% because people tend to be pretty cautious that the guy's coming off injury. So if I go 30%, I'm 3x the field on him. That's fine with me. I will try to get higher than that if I can, but realistically, given the lack of trustworthy value on this slate, I might just settle for 30. I'd like to get higher though.
I think, okay, so maybe 70s overzealous with, to use a word you just used.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Huh.
50, I'd say.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Either way, we want to be high on him. We want to actively target him and be overweight on the field, correct?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Let's move now into the weather for this week. And again, a lot of wind to monitor this week. And again, the overall thought process with wind is don't cross guys off, but lower quarterback expectations about 7%. If you still like them after lowering them 7%, cool. Be all in. That's totally fine. With wind speeds between 10 and 15 miles per hour, you lower them like, I think it's 3 to 5%, which is lower. So just keep that in mind. The big one again is Cardinals-Browns. Wind speeds currently 19 miles per hour there. We also have 14 mile per hour winds in Baltimore for the Ravens and Chargers. It's 5 miles per hour lower, which makes a big difference. High enough to monitor, but not freaking out as much there. Wind speeds in Chicago for the Bears and the Packers are currently projected at 13 miles per hour. In Jersey for the Giants and Rams, wind speeds are projected at 13 miles per hour. And wind speeds in Washington, as they have the Chiefs, are 13 miles per hour. So again, grading them in terms of like concern, Cardinals, Browns easily won, and like half a red flag concern for Baltimore, Los Angeles, for Rams, Giants, for Washington Chiefs, and for Bears, Packers, which has different red flags outside of the wind for that one. So let's move now to our position by position plays for week number 6 on the FanDuel main slate. Brandon, who stands out to you for this week?
I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. I know.
Bold.
That's bold.
Bold, but correct.
I don't care that the salary's 9,000. And now that I scaled back my initial exposure expectations on Christian McCaffrey to about 50%, I can get to Patrick Mahomes a little bit more. I was looking at McCaffrey's workload compared to everyone else's, and I was like,
it's insane.
How's this guy not 70%? Yeah. But I want to play Mahomes the rest of the season because the Chiefs need to be winning, and that's not going to come through anyone other than Patrick Mahomes. So he is second in the NFL in adjusted passing net expected points per drop, back behind only Matthew Stafford, who I think is fine this week as well. We haven't really talked about him much, but Washington's 24th against the pass, according to Number Fire's metrics. He's had one game against the bottom half pass defense so far this season, 343 yards and 3 touchdowns on 31 dropbacks. You like to see that. My second love is going to be Lamar Jackson at 8,200 on FanDuel. Love him this week. My data actually says he should have more passing touchdowns than he does because he's been pretty efficient. Yeah.
He's so good.
It's a top 5 pass defense that he faces, but not quite a true outlier, so I'm not that concerned. Also, 11 carries, 68 yards per game. On the ground, that's pretty nice. That's 1.5 passing touchdowns worth of fantasy points plus. And has 2 clear stack candidates now. That's always been the issue with Lamar. It's Mark Andrews, it's Marquise Brown. As you did mention, the Chargers do limit downfield passing. They're second in yards per target allowed on downfield passes, so that's a little bit concerning, but that's why I put Mark Andrews number 1. And just because I think we're both talking about some higher salary guys, if I had to pick anyone below 8,000, well, it's Stafford, but below Stafford, I'd be cool with Heineke or Burrow if I had to.
Yeah. I feel like I go Burrow there.
I probably would too, but
I think Heineke's a consideration, so I go Burrow by a hair. But I agree that those are the 2 guys you would consider down there. I also love Lamar Jackson, shocker, for the same reasons you mentioned, so I don't need to belabor that too much. The one good thing with the Brandon Staley defense, again, is they want to limit deep balls, and Lamar can win in other places. So I think that even though they are a soundly coached team, sound philosophy, it's still Lamar. He's my favorite quarterback of this week. I also do love Justin Herbert on the other side. I consider going Dak here as number 3 behind Lamar and Mahomes, but the difference for me is that Herbert is an underdog, and we historically see the public under-roster underdog quarterbacks. And again, I view this game as being closer to a pick between the Chargers and the Ravens. The Ravens' defense, not as fierce as it once was. They ranked 20th overall and 20th against the pass. The Chargers are ranked 5th in passing offense when I combine my preseason priors with what they've done so far in 2021. We know where Herbert's throwing. It's to Keenan, it's to Mike Will, and it's to Eckler. So he's easy to stack. Lamar is easy to stack. I still think that it's number 2 behind Chiefs Washington, but it is firmly in the same tier. I think Herbert's pretty good. I will agree that Stafford is in play. I think that Dak is good too, but I think because this game is likely to be the most competitive of those, I'll go with Herbert over them for right now. Let's move now to running back. What you got there?
I'm going to go with Austin Eckler. 8,400, ranks 6th on the slate in adjusted opportunities per game, is 5th in my expected FanDuel points per game model. Baltimore is 29th in adjusted receiving FanDuel points per target allowed to running backs, which adjusts on a player level basis. Samples can still be small there, but that's good for Eckler. They're middling and rushing efficiency allowed to running backs. I love McCaffrey. If I can't quite get there, I'm totally cool with Eckler as my number 1. I also love DeAndre Swift at 7,100. I've been really high on DeAndre Swift this season because of the targets he's been getting, which again, almost like a cheat code where you can just double up target or carries with that number. He's getting 17 per game, so again, that's worth like 14 carries. It's a 19% target share within this offense. Those rank the 7 targets and 19% target share rank 2nd and 3rd respectively among running backs. I do like this game despite some pace concerns. It's indoors. The targets are good. And Swift also has 2.4 red zone carries per game. My third love is going to be Darrell Williams because here's the thing that I can't get away from. I don't imagine his role will be significantly different than what we saw with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire was salaried at 5,200, I'd just suck it up and play him. Hope for a multi-touchdown game. That's about it. CEH played 28% of the snaps last week. Williams was at 41%, got a red zone carry, 5 total rushes, plus 5 targets, 1 in the red zone. And he did run almost 40% of the routes again, with Edwards-Helaire playing about a third of the game. So the routes really help me think that this isn't just a full-on committee. He's got the potential for 85 and a touchdown, which if I hit everywhere else, I get that I'm advocating against that, but I do think that there's a path to 18 if things fall his way because the offense is so good and because the game's so good.
If he's 10% to get 20, that means that he's like, 30% to get like 15, or is that's way too high. But like if he gets you 15, it won't kill you at least. It's not going to be the perfect lineup, but it won't kill you. So
I went 28.4
to get to 15. That's pretty good. So I think that what I would say with Williams is you allocate your exposures based on that number. Like if he's 28% to get you 15 points, use 28%.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's 5,200 is an outlier. It's not 6,200. It's not even 6,500, and we're talking about
Right.
15. 15 at 5,200 is a really rare number to get. Like 5,200 is rare for a starting running back, so it is a bit different.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the way to view it, though, is think about those odds and allocate your exposures based on those odds. My first love at running back is Christian McCaffrey. He's $10,000, but like I think everything points here to a full workload. Everything. They released Rodney Smith. They practiced him last week. He practiced again this week. This is the same plan they used last year where they, practiced in the week before, didn't play him in the first game back, brought him back, and he had, I think, like 18 carries and 10 targets in that first game back. Got hurt, so they could be more reserved, but like it was a different injury. It was not a re-aggravation. That, I think, is reassuring. In the first two games, 162 yards from scrimmage per game, 65% in the red zone chances. There is a massive gap between him in the field. So if I have one lineup, Christian McCaffrey will be in that lineup. My second love is Joe Mixon. I'm hoping he gets in a full practice by Friday because if he does, I'm gonna go bananas. He was averaging 25.3 adjusted opportunities per game in his 4 healthy games. He had 40% of the red zone chances. Facing Detroit, a defense he should be able to shred. He's $7,000. So I'd rank him above Swift and above Henderson. But like, I'm not opposed to them. I want to ask you Antonio Gibson really quick before I talk about my value play. Gibson 67. Is he game stacks only for you, or will you have some standalone plays too?
I'm just always a little bit lower on Gibson than most. He's close to game stacks only. Yeah. I prefer other backs, and I'd rather get there. So, like, I'll put it this way: if I'm building a single entry lineup that doesn't have like a Mahomes stack, Gibson's not going to make it in.
Yeah, for single entry, yes, I'd agree. My top value above Williams by hair is Devontae Booker. He should get a healthy chunk of the work. He has, last week, 24 adjusted opportunities. He had half the red zone chances for the team in that full game. There's the potential for Daniel Jones to play, and I prefer him over Darrell Williams despite the gap in offenses. I think that like these guys have similar limitations where they might not score. For Williams, it's because the Chiefs don't use their backs in the red zone. For Booker, it's because the offense might suck. But I think just because Booker will be on the field more, I'll put him above Williams, but the gap is pretty minimal. So my exposure level between the two should be pretty similar, I would say.
Yeah. I'm with you workload wise where I'd feel better about Booker, but salary wise, it's
700 does go a long way. You're right.
It does. So. Yeah. Again, I know that we advocate basically against we need to make sure that our guys can put up points. I especially feel that in like the 6,500 range, like let's call it with running backs. So he's lower than that, but James Conner,
his ceiling is 14 points if he scores twice.
Yeah, it's just I want to be clear because it might sound like we're, or at least I'll say myself being a little bit contradictory. Backs below 6,000 have a lower threshold that they need to get to. Players above that is whenever you really need to That's why I don't play a lot of Jonathan Taylor. Like, I know he has passed to upside, but if he's not breaking a big play, he doesn't really have that. So
yeah. Okay, let's move to wide receiver. What you got there?
Keenan Allen, talking about paths to big games. He's got that because the volume's there, 8+ targets in every game. That's just kind of what you expect from Keenan Allen. He ranks top 5 in targets while inside the 10 or in the end zone with 10. According to my data, Allen is also the biggest underperformer in the touchdown column among receivers. So something has to give eventually with that workload. My second love is Amari Cooper at 6,800. I liked the bounce back-ish from Amari in week 5. His target share has been really low, but he had 19% in week 5, 6 targets, 2 downfield, 2 red zone. That works out to closer to 9 targets rather than the 6 because of the added value of where he was getting those targets. By contrast, he was averaging 5.1 weighted targets per game from weeks 2 through 4. Love this game overall. Amari has 9 targets while inside the 10 or in the end zone. So it's a great roll despite the targets not being as high as we would like. And again, a game that I like this week. My third love is going to be Mecole Hardman at 5,500. Just really easy way to get exposure to the Chiefs offense. The role to me is not reflected with the salary in such a good offense. Hardman has a 19% target share the past 2 games. Had 12 targets last week, which is good for 24% within that offense. Included a downfield target and 2 red zone targets. And again, Josh Gordon was not a factor yet, and I feel like it's got to be weeks away with it, if at all, that he kind of makes Mecole Hardman irrelevant.
We are years away, bud. I'm pretty sure. He looks huge in like a good way. Like he looks jacked. But I'm not sure that's really conducive to like being super speedy at wide receiver. He's been hitting the weight room a lot, which is good for him, but I don't think he's going to unseat Hardman for snaps anytime soon. My first love is also Amari Cooper. I know he's your second, but he's my first.
You're going low.
What?
You're going low if Cooper's your top guy.
It's influenced by McCaffrey and Mahomes. Yeah, that's the I need to find value, and I like Cooper a lot. If we look overall this year, he has 21% of the overall targets, 33% deep, and 30 in the red zone. I initially went into this thinking I'd talk about CeeDee Lamb, but like Cooper is actually getting better workloads, ? He's also getting healthier, further removed from the hamstring and the rib injuries. He's $6,800. I like him a lot. I want to be in on Amari Cooper. My current lineup that I have built has Amari Cooper in it as like a single entry tournament lineup. He's in there. I think he's pretty good. I like Amari Cooper a lot this week. My second love is Kadarius Toney. The Giants are getting Shepard and Slayton back, but I just don't think you can put the genie back in the bottle. Most of his production last week came with Mike Glennon, which should mean that he is in play no matter who starts. He's $6,000. It's really hard to get his upside at this salary very often, so I think that I'll take that salary at $6,000 and go to him. I will say if we get the wind to come down a bit, I will foolishly use Odell Beckham again, but maybe the wind will save me from myself. Come on, wind. Come on, Mother Nature. Make me not do stupid stuff. My third love is a guy we have not discussed yet, but Darnell Mooney. We have not seen the Bears in a negative script yet because Justin Fields the past 2 weeks with Bill Lazor calling plays has thrown 37 passes. 33 have come when they've been tied or ahead. 4 have come in a negative script. That's a good reason to potentially check out the Packers defense or bet the Packers and lay the points. But it also means we could see more Darnell Mooney this week. He has 28% of the targets in the 3 starts by Justin Fields. So if the passing volume increases, he would benefit in a pretty big way. We saw the Packers get shredded deep by Jamar Chase last week with no Jair Alexander. So I do think that this is a good spot to go to Mooney once again at $5,600. His salary is frozen there, and I'll take it. I think it makes sense to go back there once again. I did mention Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you really need to save salary, I can get there.
Yeah.
I know. I'm a hypocrite. Oh, well. Let's move to tight end. What you got there?
Yeah, I mean, and you make a good point with the McCaffrey thing. Like, I had Eckler as my top running back, and if you have Eckler as your top guy and you don't play McCaffrey, which, basically is going to be, if you're not playing McCaffrey, you get to Eckler, like, have a lot more salary. So it's really going to depend on, I think, 3 things. Three players. The 2 value backs and McCaffrey. That's going to depend. That's going to dictate a lot of stuff. But for me, either way, I want to make sure I'm getting to Mark Andrews at 6,300 at tight end. For the most part, it's a pretty weak position, which is typical. We do have Travis Kelce on the slate, and I'm not saying I'm going to overlook him, but it's kind of hard to get there, especially whenever we have Andrews. I would say undersalaried now with his combination of salary and upside. It's just he's like the lone standout to me as someone who's undersalaried who can actually put up legitimate points. He has a 27% target share over the past 3 games, and the Chargers are 28th in adjusted FanDuel points per target allowed to tight ends. My second love, not surprising, will probably be chalky, but it's Ricky Seals-Jones at 5,000, 99% of the snaps last week, 86% of the routes, 8 targets, 3 in the end zone. I will take that, and it's a good matchup as well for him.
RSJ is great. Don't care if he's chalk. Needs salary savings. So I think that I'd agree with that. He's one of my loves as well for the same reasons. I think Mark Andrews is the best tight end play on the slate, so I want to say that too. So Andrews, Ricky Seals-Jones. If I'm not going there, I don't mind Tyler Higbee. Stop me. Again, it's kind of like Odell. Like, please make me stop doing this.
Hey, play him in our head-to-head. I'll take it.
No, I'll play RSJ there. I'm just going to let you know. Them.
I'm actually play Andrews in that.
Actually, yeah, it's probably smarter. No, I was going to block you. Okay. Higbee, though, $5,500. The Giants have given up 7+ targets to a tight end in 3 of their 5 games this year. Higbee is $5,500, plays every snap, in a good game, on a good offense, facing a bad defense. I want to get off eventually, but like $5,500, man, really hard for me to say no. So I'm going to just keep on giving it a shot and see what happens. Let's finish up with defense. What you got there?
I do have the Packers. They're $4,200. It's a good enough salary for me. Justin Fields has been better after his really bad start to the season, but probably not 100% after his knee injury. I thought he wouldn't even play. It was kind of, but he has an NFL high sack rate overall. Even if you look at just the past 2 starts, it's still above average. The Packers, again, should play from ahead, and that should put a probably not 100% Justin Fields into negative script, and I like that.
Yeah, I think that I'd agree with that. I like the Packers. I also want to mention that the Browns are in play if Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett play. They both sat on Wednesday. Clowney couldn't play last week. It really impacted their defensive line. With Rodney Hudson being out, I think that the communication issues could be most impactful with Clowney. So if Clowney plays, I'm going to use the Browns defense at times.
I've seen the Browns rate out projections-wise really well pretty much everywhere.
Popular. I hate that. It's because they're low salaried. So I'll talk about the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys should be favored by more than 3.5 here. The Patriots offensive line is super banged up. They rank 30th in schedule adjusted offense. They almost got beat by the Texans last week. The Cowboys, 3rd ranked defense, that's fluky. It's heavily influenced by turnovers, so that's not going to stick. But like, they're a league average defense facing a beat up offensive line and a bad overall offense. Like, I think the Cowboys are pretty good. I do like the Packers as well, despite Jair Alexander being out. And I will use the Browns. And other teams to note here, Carolina I'll use at times against Minnesota. Darisaw played a bit last week, so like the offensive line not as bad as it was previously, but it's still, the Panthers are a good defense, I think.
Would you play Minnesota against Carolina?
I mean, it's Darnold, so sure. Yeah, why not? $3,700? Sure, let's do it. Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm looking the most, I would say.
Can you play the Chiefs at 3,800?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I thought about it long enough.
Are they allowed to get a turnover? Are they allowed to pressure the quarterback?
Also, pretty sure Heineke has a really low sack rate.
He's kind of D-gaffy, so that is kind of conducive to like to defenses because he has some Jameis in him. He's got some Fitzmagic in him, but not. I just don't think I can use that defense. But let's go RSJ. Right. We'll feel fine about it. Okay, that is all that we have here for today. Brandon, any final thoughts for you before we send the good people off to fill out their Week 6 lineups?
We covered a lot. I know it was a little bit back and forth, but as I mentioned at the top of the show, there was a lot I needed to figure out about how I was feeling about things. I still feel really good about the mid-range running backs.
Oh, yeah.
I want to make sure I get McCaffrey. I'm okay with the value backs. More likely than not, I will have more Darrell Williams just because the salary savings open up more. But I really would imagine that the value backs will be chalky-ish, and that could leave some amazing options in the 7,000 range just overlooked. And I do want to take advantage of that.
I agree. Really good week to get to them, but also a good week to get to McCaffrey and a good week to get to Tyreek Hill. So I'm very conflicted. We'll see how things play out once we're building stuff on Sunday morning. That is all that we have here for today. As a reminder, we are here every Monday and Thursday. Recap on Monday, preview on Thursday, up on the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, and also live on the FanDuel YouTube page. So make sure you are subscribed in both places, to the FanDuel YouTube page and to the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. NHL is back with Tom Vecchio, NBA back just around the corner as well. So a lot of good stuff here on the feed. Make sure you are subscribed. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm at Gadula13, GDULA13.
Check out Brandon on our Thursday Night Football preview show today, breaking down the Bucs and the Eagles on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages at 4 p.m. Eastern until 4:30, getting your single game lineup set for tonight. I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you in Week 6. We'll talk to you once again on Monday to wrap it all up. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by Number Fire.